Hello, sorry about that. Hello, everybody. This is John Fenn, supernaturalhousechurch.org, and I'm starting this, if you're watching this live, at a different time than I normally do, but I've got a scheduling conflict, and so many of you are going to see this later than at the regular time. But again, this is John Fenn, supernaturalhousechurch.org, and I'm interested in the discipleship process. So today, talking about how to establish priorities and make right decisions. And this can help a lot of people. Let me explain some real life situations. A lady sat in my office who had given away her rent money, which is about $500, had given it away to her daughter because her addict daughter had wasted all her money on drugs and her addiction. And now the mom is there in my office heartbroken because she's got her rent money and her daughter is begging her for the money so that she doesn't get evicted from her apartment, but the mom needs the money. What do you do? Another situation where, here's a good situation. I've got something we did that, and I'll explain the common thread, is that we had no phone calls at dinner. When our kids were growing up, that was the rule. No matter who called from the church or anything else, or family or relatives, once we sat down as a family, there were no phone calls allowed, no interruptions allowed. That's going to be the common thread I'm talking about too. I'll bring it to conclusion here in a second. And another one is somebody who's really, really moved by the plea for money on TV, also on a church offering, to give money to some need, some cause, some project, and they've got their money, they've got their food money, they've got their rent money in one hand, but they have this urge to give because they're very compassionate, very giving people. Should they give their rent money? Should they give their power money, whatever the case is, to the cause? How do you establish the priorities? So those are some real life situations, some real life examples. Jesus said in Acts 1:8, he talked about how the disciples would witness. In Acts 1:8, he said, "You'll be witnesses of me in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the world." Now, this is how exactly how the book of Acts plays out. You will be witnesses of me in Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, the uttermost parts. These are three circles, Jerusalem being the innermost, Judea slightly outward from there, Samaria, and then the uttermost. They pertain to our lives and to our priority making. For instance, let me just take it through my original statement. In the book of Acts, all the way through chapter 7, they were focused only on Jerusalem. Acts chapter 8:1 tells us that when the persecution that happened because of Stephen, all the disciples left Jerusalem except for the apostles. Now I want you to understand, Acts 8:1 says all the disciples left. And where did they move to? Judea and Samaria. And so and then Acts 11:19 says when they moved out of town, some of them went as far as Antioch and Cyprus and different nations like that. So what Jesus said in Acts 1:8 actually happened. It happened exactly that way. First they were witnesses in Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, then the uttermost parts of the world. But this establishes priorities, and this is what God did, why he allowed that time frame in Jerusalem to concentrate there, to get the body of Christ walking in love and unity and concentrating the power there, so to speak, before he moved on. And this establishes for us our priorities. You and your life and your spouse, your family, whatever the case is, you are the Jerusalem. Judea, in Jesus' original setting of Acts 1:8, would have been the relatives outside of the walls of the city of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is you and your household, and that is your number one priority. And then Judea is the relatives outside the walls. And then Samaria, Samaritans were related through centuries earlier of mixed breed, different stuff like that, but they were still related. Technically, they were cousins of the Samaritans, but they are further out from the family than that. And then you have the uttermost parts. The uttermost parts. So you have Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the uttermost parts. So when that lady sat in my office and she said, "What should I do? My daughter's got this addiction. She's battling it. I'm praying for her. What should I do? I've got my rent money. My daughter's coming to me. She blew her money, on that addiction. And what should I do?" And I told her, I said, "You can't give your adult daughter your rent money. You need that mortgage. You need that payment yourself." I had another situation, very similar, where I had a mom and a dad who had their home paid off, and their son and daughter, their daughter had gotten pregnant and different things like that and wanted to have a house for her own. And the mom and the dad, who were retired, who had worked hard to pay off their house, were seriously considering putting a mortgage against their house and take that tens of thousands of dollars and give it to the daughter to buy her a house outright, because the daughter, being the single mom and whatever, couldn't support herself in a house and a mortgage payment. So rather than have the daughter move in and maybe add on to the house or something like that, or find another solution, they were willing to jeopardize their home for their daughters like that. And it's like, that's not the priority. That's take care of Jerusalem, mom and dad, and then let the Judea and the Samaria take care of itself in the uttermost parts. Same thing with the person who's watching the TV project from some ministry. Once you give to this project in some faraway land, and they're sitting there with their food money, or they're sitting there with their utility money, and they're sitting there wondering, what should I do? Well, first, Jerusalem has to be taken care of, folks. You can't take care of the uttermost parts of the world if your Jerusalem is falling apart. So what Paul said is this. Paul said this in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 11 through 13, just to help establish the priorities. He said, now you wanted to give over a year ago, but you didn't have the opportunity. But now you've got the opportunity, so follow through with it. He said, for when a person wants to give, it is figured according to what that person has, not according to what they have not. For I do not want you to be burdened while you help someone else. But now at this time of your abundance can help them in their need, and at the time of their abundance, they may in turn help you in your time of need. So it's figured according to what you have, not according to what you have not. So sometimes you'll hear ministries and they'll say, charge it, use the charge card and make a huge donation to the ministry, keep us on the TV, keep us whatever the case is. And that person who is struggling to make ends meet will put $1,000 or more on their charge card. They don't have it, but they want to help the person. And they figure, okay, I can pay this off over the next 4 or 5 years. They're effectively taking a loan for that ministry so that they can help that ministry while putting their own lives at jeopardy. You take care of the Jerusalem first, and then Judea, Samaria, and outward from there. Anyway, that's the basic. Why did we not answer? Why did I not answer the phone during dinner time? Because of Jerusalem. That time around the dinner table with my young sons and my wife, that was sacred time, and I didn't care if the uttermost parts of the world or Samaria or Judea was burning. That my Jerusalem had to be intact. And that's how you prioritize in life. You before you consider involving your time, your resources, your finances, or whatever, you look at yourself and you say, is my time intact? I've known many, many church people. I had a guy come to me one time, and he spent his grocery money because the church needed some things, and he wanted to help the church out, but rather than go through the system of the church, he took his grocery money to pay for it for the church, figuring maybe in a month or so the church system would be there and maybe he could get reimbursed. His wife came into my office furious with him because how were they going to feed their family? Because he had taken the grocery money and helped someone in the church out, or helped the church process out. And it was just backwards, and the wife was right to be angry. And there are so many examples like that. Are we to love? Are we to give? Absolutely, absolutely. But we're not to do it, according to 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 11 through 13, to the point that it places our Jerusalem at risk. It is figured according to what you have, not according to... Hello, sorry about that. Hello, everybody. This is John Fenn. Super